Hello, everyone. So it's been an exciting week learning about new technologies, new devices, new sensors for pretty much be able to map every single part of their crops. But today I'm gonna focus on a very specific aspect, and it's about how we can actually integrate all of this set of technologies, all of this output that these models, algorithms that we trained to improve decision-making capabilities. And I would like to start asking the audience if you probably, who here have been using ChatGPT for writing or improving the coding skill? Someone? Well, good. And the fascinating thing about this is that how this new AI foundation model are moving really quickly. Indeed, we are in the phase that we are moving from single task models, single task algorithms, to those sophisticated foundation models that they can actually understand multimodal data in the same kind of way that human does. The reason why we can reason is because we can actually understand. We can actually understand multimodal data and make decisions in real time. So we work for that. We are working on Texas A&M AgriLife Research. It's part of the Texas A&M University system. So we are around 13 research stations centered across all the state. We are specifically located almost in Mexico, the Rio Grande Valley. And we have different areas of research. Us specifically, our lab, we are focusing on innovative new technologies for agriculture. We are trying to kind of collaborate with research, different universities, different organizations across the globe to come with different technology that can help us to improve our research practices. So specifically what we want is that we have developed a really powerful platform capabilities to map our crops, collect information with different sensors like UAV, ground penetrating radar for root phenotyping. And now we are focusing in how we can actually collect all of that information that come from different toys, different fancy technology that extract information from the electromagnetic spectrum and how we can transform that information into pictures. That means that what we're gonna learn about this new framework called LegoPy is that how we are using these foundation models to improve in the way farmers, research can access to all of this information that we are daily generating. So, and I want to emphasize that what we are trying to do here is we want to transform this non-structured data, like we call it the observations or measurements, and how we can transform that into a structured data that eventually we can use for downstream analysis, like machine learning, all of these fancy models that we have today. So, and something that we realize is that high throughput phenotypic pipelines are data intense. We have all of these platforms to collect data through all of the crop cycle. And there is a lot of kind of challenge with that, One is that we have this structured data, different for such as tables, databases, crop data sets, so on. But we also have this non-structured data set that, like genome sequence data, images, hyperspectral data, remote and proximal sensing data that we generate. So it's a really tight process, Data analysis in remote sensing is complex, especially because here is one example. How many tools you need to have in order to transform your flights in something that you can potentially use or breeders can use to do inference based on that data? How many software you need to play around, you need to be expert to be able to kind of snap picture from that data and then be able to kind of give the information to breeders and research that they really need. So we have done a lot of research in terms of integrating UAV platform and ground penetrating radar, specifically for above ground and below ground biomass estimations. And one of the limitations that we found with the GPR world is even though there is a lot of people effective in this kind of technology, well, we were able to make it work. And the way that we did it is we needed to come with our own software. So we developed GPR Studio, and GPR Studio is an ecosystem of Python libraries and software working together to transform the GPR data into information and features that we can use for road biomass estimation. And it's worked pretty well after like a lot of research, years of like working on that. This is the software. You have like a visualization software, but you also have a Python API that you can actually use to interact with your data. You can transform that data in more sophisticated algorithms that you can use for prediction and so on. But the limitation was that, this tool has been developed for geophysics. So how breeders can actually use this tool for biomass or root biomass estimation? Well, we needed to develop our own software, because if you realize in the ecosystem of tools that these companies provide to you, you cannot go further of these buttons and options that you have in the UI. That's means that we come with this software. So we recently were able to integrate LiDAR data and GPR data for reconstruct 3D above ground and below ground biomass estimation. We recently submitted a paper, this is Potato here, where we were able to transform the GPR signal to a 3D representation of the tubers. But today talks not about these data fusion approaches or sensors. We're gonna focus in this, One of the limitations that we have so far with this technology is that there is a new sensor every day. There is a new software every day for GPR. And even like it was mentioned before, there are people working the same thing, and you don't realize that you are working the same stuff. And also, something interesting is that, so observation are biased to the interpretation. You're good at collect UAV images. And got like these pretty pictures that can tell you a lot about your crop. But when you transfer that data in something that the breeders and pathology they can interpret, you're gonna find out that they have different point of view. And this can be a disease or like a pathogen for someone, like it's a plant pathologist, but it could represent something related with oil soil quality or something like that. So the question here is how you can integrate all of this information that you derive from this multi-sensor platform, but incorporating also expert domain knowledge. That eventually is going to help you to kind of bring all of this information in context and improve the decision capability that you have in your program. And this is why we developed LegoPy. LegoPy is a framework. It's actually like general purpose framework. It's a crop agnostic framework that it has been focused specifically in managing and optimizing workflows for analyzing and processing multi-data in agriculture application. But this can be going beyond that because we're gonna see how this LegoPy works. So the foundation of LegoPy is that recent advances in LLMs have demonstrated that these models can actually reason. So that means that it has changed in the way how we interact with these models today. So the key idea about that is LLMs, large language models, are these sophisticated models based on transformer architecture that they have been specifically trained to understand human languages. They are really extremely good to transform language into a structured data that you can use to orchestrate your pipelines. And the foundation behind of that is they are autoregressive. The autoregressive design of this model enables them that they generate one token at a time, but they are able to get back and use the previous token and adjust the output. This is extremely useful because if you provide the model with intermediate steps how to solve problems, they're gonna be able to learn how you can actually improve, how you can actually not only just generate the next token, but provide with the reasoning steps that you need to do to solve a specific task. So this changes how we actually interact with large language model today. This is a standalone interaction with LLM. Just go open ChatGPT and you ask, what is 1 + 2? And just generate the next token. But what about if you ask this question? Which crop, cotton or soybean, is better suited for the hot and dry climate in West Texas? So probably these LLMs haven't been trained on so much information on plant breeding or agricultural practice or so on, right? But today, there are different design patterns that you can actually provide these models with external information and data that they can incorporate into the context. So that means that the output is not going to be specifically based on the data that they memorize during training, but they're going to also use the information that you provide in the context. And we are talking about that these models can actually handle up to like 2 million tokens. 2 million tokens is almost like 9 Harry Potter books together. Imagine how much information you can feed into this model. Another kind of interaction that you're probably going to need to have is like, what about if I have a model, like soil model or weather model that you train in your data? And you want the model be able to access that model to bring context into the capability. So we can also do that. If I have a specific function and a script that run in the backend a model that you have been training your data, you can actually make the model be aware about that. That means that the next time he's gonna, I cannot execute code, but I know that there is a function that I can potentially use in the backend, and it's gonna give me the weather prediction or whatever you guys can think. But there are even more sophisticated applications of LLMs today. For instance, those where reasoning is required. Those complex problems that cannot be solved with a single interaction, but the model needs to actually get back and think about it and then come with an approach to solve the problem. The unified solution that we have today in the state of the art LLMs is agents. Agents extend beyond the text generation, which is what ChatGPT does, and incorporate advanced cognitive functions such as reasoning, planning, and decision making. And the way this actually works is that you train a model to be able to reason and make decisions. And then this model can have memory. That memory can be all the paper that you published last year when it's all the overview or the review of the agricultural practice that you have been building in your breeding program or so on. And they can use all of that information in the memory to address any question that the user can potentially ask. So by harnessing advanced capabilities in our language models, they can autonomously execute and solve problems. This is an example. Imagine that the farmer asks, what is the weather today in San Francisco? For sure, the LLM is not trained with real-time data. But if you provide in the context that there is one function, one model that you train to be able to bring information from the weather in real time, it can actually feed that into the context. So that means that the agent can grab this tool, execute weather, which could be a Python function, an ARP function, and then provide you with an update version of that. So this is how LegoPy actually works. So you can create your custom blocks. Think about your analysis as a set of steps, and each step could be a block. One step is going to be load the model, load the data, and so on. Think about like a Lego, building a Lego. Probably if you guys have son, you're very familiar with this. So we're going to have people that have expertise in genomics data analysis, LiDAR data analysis, JPR data analysis. So LegoPy provides with a LegoPy registry. The registry is, imagine a database of thousands of blocks that you can use. Well, we haven't gotten to that point, but we have developed some for remote sensing application and agriculture specific. So you can use those blocks, and you have different ways to put these blocks together. One is using a UI, an interface. One is if you have some Python skills, you can actually develop your own custom analysis. But also, if you want to the model be able to suggest what could be the potential pipeline that fit into your analysis, you can ask the LegoPy, and he's gonna try to figure it out based on those blocks and information that he has about them in the database, how he can arrange those blocks so that he can provide you a pipeline that you can potentially execute in your data. So LegoPy philosophy is centered on fostering collaboration among agents and humans to tackle intricate tasks. So this is one of the high-level components of LegoPy. You have the user interface, but you have the Python APIs that enable you to create the agents on the blocks. And you have 3 different engines. We know that handler data is an expensive task. like especially in the remote sensing context. So we relied in tools such as Qflow, Docker, or Rate. These are the tools that have been taught to deploy high-performance pipelines data analysis. But we also have the reasoning engine. The reasoning engine is because we don't want a reader navigate through a very complex software that have like 2,000 different buttons to do just generate the vegetation indices. That means that you can actually use natural language processing to talk with LegoPy, and he's gonna figure it out. Hey, I have this block. Just use this block. He's gonna create the pile and he's gonna execute for you and get the data back. And we have two different data storage. Metadata, when you can save metrics, prediction accuracies, or any structured metadata that you want to save. But you have also a storage artifacts, which is focused on, imagine that you generate an orthomosaic or one of the agents in the backend run one function that create that orthomosaic, and then you need to some like a kind of a storage to save that output there. So this is when we talk about a non-structured data. And we have also a RAG engine, because imagine that you want to submit a script that compute vegetation index. But there are 2,000 scripts that do the same thing. So that means that LegoPy internally use this RAG engine to identify that the code that you are trying to write, even if it's different to somebody else wrote, is similar. That means that it's really kind of important to have another block that does the same thing. Another thing that you can do is you can put multiple LLMs or models to collaborate each other to solve more complex tasks. This is what we call in agents collaboration patterns. So for the short video of 1 minute that I'm just gonna move quickly so I can show the video. Well, another challenge that we have is that how we can incorporate information from different multimodalities and talk about images, cloud points, or this kind of stuff to the same data structure. Well, we are currently using XR8, which is a like format optimized specifically for this kind of scenarios, when you can have information about your plot and this information can be multidimensional. So this is the example that I will show. Imagine that you are a breeder and you don't have someone that is expert in your program that want to kind of help you to figure it out how to generate an orthomosaic, how to compute a vegetation index, save them in a CSV file, try to determine what is the correlation with yield, and how you can potentially use that information to improve predictions. Well, so you can make these kind of agents collaborations when each agent is gonna be doing something different. For instance, the remote sensing agent is gonna have access to different script or function that you have created in the backend to automate all of these kind of things. You have another cross physiologist that is gonna be a retrieval agent where all the paper that you have written about yield, you can pass to the model, so that means that the model can bring that into the context. So at the end, LegoPy provides a high-level API to orchestrate, develop, implement, and deploy these kind of solutions. And just to provide a better picture of how this actually works, this is a 1-minute video that shows you everything working together. So you have 4 different agents here, remote sensing expert, So all of these agents is gonna be collaboratively working to solve a specific task. So the first question was about, go to my account in 2x and bring what projects I have in the access to. But you can also ask questions such as, can you please generate the vegetation index? So you're gonna have some kind of stuff in the backend that you're gonna generate the indices, and I'm gonna bring that into the context. So here is generate the indices for you. So then you can go to the genomic data analysis. Can you create a relationship matrix for my marker data? And you're gonna return the information that you expect. And finally, you can have a crop expert that can combine all of this information to provide a better decision making. And so he's gonna provide here with very detailed explanation about what you can do to improve and how you can do for. So I'm short in time, so this is one of the possibilities, LegoPy facilitates multimodal data function integration, improve content-aware decision-making capability, elevate data interpretability and accessibility, reproducibility is a good thing, flexibility and crop agnostic, facilitate plane deployment, and so at the end, so we are open to collaborate. So I want to extend my acknowledgement to the AI and the crop remote sensing team in the West Lackway Station. So we are open to collaborate. We are right now looking where Lego Pi can fit in and how you guys can potentially use that into the breeder programs to improve decision making. And with that, thank you so much.
So thank you very much for the nice talk. Is there any question? Just there in the front here.
Hi, thanks for the presentation and an interesting approach to using the AI to also help with analysis tooling. One specific question about the analysis part of it. Do you have any way in place to keep track of which scripts and which tools the analysis pipeline that is chosen by the agents is recorded so that you have the computational provenance, like how actually were the results computed?
Yeah, so indeed the way actually that works is that even though these models have the capability to generate code, they probably, because they haven't been fine-tuning the script that you have created for a long time, you can just bring all of them and you can actually specify which agent is going to have access to this particular function or blocks that you need. And the agent is just going to use, they're going to try to understand what you want to do, and they're going to figure it out internally that, oh, these functions can be addressed by a script that you wrote or something like that, you know? That means that the agent internally, they are really good interpreting human language. So that means that they understand exactly what you mean, but they cannot execute code. But you can provide them with different tools so they can actually use in the backend to generate and bring the context information for generate the output that you expect. That means that you are free to provide them with the methods and the function that you have implemented by your own.
Okay, so one very short question, just right here in the middle.
Is the code open source and available on GitHub? And very briefly, won't you have problems with such a generic and known name?
So we're going to open source the code. So we right now is we have a paper ready for submit. We are trying to think where can be a good journal to submit that paper. Well, once we submit it, we're going to make all the code available. And what is the other question that you asked? Legal. This is a really good point. This is something that actually right now we are working because we know that Lego, I just skipped that, but Lego Pi is watermark. So the reason why we call Lego is because the idea is that you bring all of these blocks together to solve complex problems that the agents they're gonna use in the backend to solve the problem, but we're probably gonna change the name because this is a watermark name.
Okay, so thank you very much for the nice talk.
Thank you.